Ever get that feeling that, good enough just isn't really cutting it, especially when you're trying to make an impact globally?
Oh, absolutely. That little worry in the back of your mind that maybe a slightly off translation or a subtitle glitch could end up costing you, well, more than just embarrassment.
Exactly. It's a real concern. So today, we're going to dive deep into something that tackles this head on:
Yeah.
the cost of quality, specifically in media localization.
Mm-hmm.
We've got some great source materials to unpack for you, including a really insightful article by Dr. Paolo Fontana.
And what's so interesting, I think, is this idea that quality isn't just some vague, abstract goal. It has real, tangible financial implications.
Right.
We're not just talking about avoiding those absolute disasters, but about how making smart investments early on in quality can actually save you a lot of money down the line. It's about being strategic, really.
Totally strategic. So our mission here today is to sort of demystify this cost of quality framework for you. We want to show you how it can be like a blueprint for getting that top-notch localization quality without, breaking the bank.
Think of it as a shortcut, maybe, to getting a solid handle on a really crucial part of reaching a global audience well.
Yes, exactly. A shortcut to being well-informed. We'll look at the four main categories, the pillars of this framework.
So first things first.
Yeah, to really build a solid foundation, we need to start right at the beginning. We're going to dig into Dr. Fontana's own initial experiences, right from the first paragraph of his article.
Okay, let's do it, because that opening is actually really telling. He talks about 1999, a career shift for him. He joined Technicolor Rome as finance director.
Finance director. Okay, so maybe not the first place you'd think of for quality management expertise.
Right, but that was actually his entry point into what's called Total Quality Management Systems, or TQMS.
TQMS?
Okay.
Yeah, it's a pretty comprehensive approach to quality used across lots of industries. And it's super relevant for media localization, where, consistency and accuracy across different languages are just paramount.
So finance was the way in. I wonder, did he mention, any pushback or skepticism, bridging finance and production quality? Seems like an unusual route.
That's a fair question. The article doesn't really detail specific interpersonal challenges, but it strongly highlights the visionary leadership of the CEO at the time, Dr. Pino Filardi.
Ah, okay. Leadership buy-in.
Exactly. It seems like that was the real driving force behind the whole organization pushing towards ISO 9000 certification.
Right, ISO 9000. This wasn't just about ticking a box.
Not at all. They saw it as, and I'm quoting here, a cornerstone of continuous improvement and operational excellence. Really fundamental stuff.
And it wasn't just, say, the localization team or the dubbing studio working on this in isolation.
No, that's the key point Dr. Fontana makes. He says this quality focus permeated every department, and he specifically lists finance, AR, AP, general ledger, controlling plus IT, plus purchasing.
Wow, okay.
And importantly, his role as finance director actually covered all those areas.
So that really underlines the point, doesn't it? Quality isn't just about the final file you deliver. It's baked into the whole process.
The whole operation's health and efficiency. And his involvement got even deeper. He was appointed to the ISO 9000 Audit Committee.
So he wasn't just looking at spreadsheets. He was actively involved in ensuring those standards were met across the board.
Precisely. And they didn't stop at ISO 9000. They also went for ISO 14000.
Which is environmental management, right?
Yeah. And as he points out, that was particularly relevant because they were dealing with chemical agents in some of their film processing work, presumably.
Okay, so that gives a really concrete sense of how broad their definition of quality management was. It went beyond just the media itself.
Absolutely. And this whole experience, this rigorous ISO approach with documented processes and aiming for constant improvement, it fundamentally changed his work ethos, as he puts it.
How so?
He says it fostered a holistic view of the organization. He could see how everything connected from the initial sales lead coming in all the way through production to the final invoice going out and getting paid.
Seeing the whole value chain.
Exactly. Understanding how all the pieces fit together and impact each other.
And then there's this bit about practical outcomes. This idea of continuous improvement wasn't just theory. He says it became ingrained in how he operated.
Right. And he gives tangible examples, like implementing clear operating instructions. Simple, maybe, but effective.
Or facilitating knowledge sharing within the team.
Yeah, things that just naturally make things run smoother, more efficiently, and ultimately improve the financial results, too. It's about building quality in.
Building it in, not just inspecting it at the end.
Precisely. And this leads directly to the cost of quality framework, Kukyu. He says this framework particularly resonated with him.
Okay, and why was that? What made it click for him, coming from finance?
Well, he saw it as a vital bridge between TQMS and finance. That's the key phrase he uses.
A bridge, okay.
It basically allowed him to take those quality initiatives, those operational improvements, and translate them into something finance understands, tangible financial metrics.
Uh, Connecting the dots between quality work and the bottom line.
Hmm.
That's huge, isn't it? Especially when you're trying to justify budgets for quality initiatives.
Totally. It moves the discussion beyond just saying, quality is important to actually showing the financial return on investing in it.
Right, numbers talk.
And the core benefit, as Dr. Fontana saw it, was that Kokyu vividly illustrates how enhancing operational quality directly contributes to generating financial value for all stakeholders.
So it's not a cost center, it's actually a value generator.
Exactly. It demonstrates that putting resources into quality isn't just an expense, it's an investment that pays off.
Okay, so let's just recap that deep dive into paragraph 1. It sounds like Dr. Fontana's early days at Technicolor, shaped by strong leadership and the practical application of systems like ISO, were really formative.
Definitely foundational.
It wasn't just learning about quality in theory. It was seeing firsthand, in a complex business, how operational quality and financial success are, well, directly linked.
Yeah, an absolutely critical link he clearly recognized, especially for a field as nuanced and, frankly, complex as media localization.
And that real-world grounding perfectly sets up why this broader cost of quality framework is so vital for anyone working in this space today.
Absolutely, because let's be honest, settling for good enough in media localization, that can be a really risky proposition financially.
You think about the potential problems, right?
Mm.
Audio that's out of sync,
Yeah.
subtitles that are maybe culturally insensitive or just plain wrong.
Yeah, those aren't just small oopsies. They can lead to angry clients, tons of expensive rework, maybe even losing contracts, and the damage to your reputation.
Oof, yeah. Hard to measure, but definitely costly.
And that's where this Koki framework really helps. It gives you a structured way to look at all the costs tied to quality or, the lack of it. It helps you move beyond just firefighting those big disasters.
Okay, so it breaks it down. We mentioned 4 pillars earlier.
That's right. The 4 main categories. First up, you've got prevention costs.
Prevention. Okay, makes sense. Stopping problems before they start.
Exactly. This is all about the money you spend up front to minimize defects happening in the first place. So in our world, think about things like really thorough training for your linguists and translators.
Good training, yeah.
Yeah.
Or developing detailed style guides and glossaries for a project.
Perfect examples. Investing in solid quality management systems, maybe technology to help consistency. It's proactive spending.
Okay, so that's prevention. What's
Yeah.
next?
Next comes appraisal costs. This is the cost of actually checking the quality, measuring, evaluating, auditing.
So the quality control steps themselves, like LQA, linguistic quality assurance reviews.
Yep, LQA is a classic example. Also, technical QC, making sure the files work, sync is right, specs are met, maybe even those in-country reviews you do for really sensitive marketing campaigns.
Got it. So prevention is upfront investment. Appraisal is checking along the way. What if things still go wrong?
Well, that brings us to the failure costs. First, there are internal failure costs.
Internal, meaning you catch the mistake before it goes out the door.
Exactly, you found the error internally, but it still costs you something to fix it. Think about having to re-record a voiceover because the pronunciation was off.
Or re-edit a whole batch of subtitles because the timing was wrong.
Or maybe rework a translation that just didn't hit the mark internally. It's waste, essentially. Wasted time, wasted resources, rework effort, all before delivery.
Okay, so internal failure. That sounds bad, but presumably not as bad as.
External failure costs. Yeah, this is the big one, usually. These are the costs you face when the mistake isn't caught internally and the client, or worse, the end user, finds the error.
Ouch. Yeah. Examples.
Well, the obvious one is having to do urgent rework because the client flagged an issue. That often comes with rush fees and a lot of stress.
Right. Potentially financial penalties, too, if you've missed SLAs.
Definitely. Service level agreements often have clauses for that, but it goes beyond that. You risk losing future business from that client. Word gets around.
Reputational damage, yeah. That can be devastating in the long run.
Hugely damaging. So you've got prevention, appraisal, internal failure, and external failure. Those are the 4 pillars.
And the whole idea of the CoQ framework, the insight, is how these relate to each other, right?
Precisely. It's about finding the balance, often called the sweet spot. The core idea is that investing more in prevention and appraisal.
The upfront stuff.
Right.
Hmm.
Investing more there can significantly reduce your internal and, crucially, your external failure costs. And generally, fixing failures, especially external ones, is way more expensive than preventing them or catching them early through appraisal.
It's the old ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure idea, but with financial data behind it.
Exactly that. Think of it like mixing audio. You're trying to find that perfect balance where the investment in quality upfront yields the best overall financial outcome by minimizing those costly failures later.
But there's also a risk of going too far, like overinvesting.
Yeah, there can be diminishing returns. You could spend a fortune on appraisal, checking every single tiny detail 10 times over, and maybe the reduction in failure costs beyond a certain point isn't worth that extra appraisal spend.
So it's not about achieving zero defects at any cost necessarily, but finding the optimal level of quality investment for your specific context.
Right, optimizing the total cost. And to
Okay.
do that effectively, you really need to track this stuff. You need to measure your quality health.
Okay, how do you do that?
That's where KPIs come in, key performance indicators. You need to define and track specific metrics within each of those four COQ categories.
So putting actual numbers on things like rework hours, client complaint rates, LQA costs, training investments.
Exactly. Once you start tracking those KPIs, you move away from just guessing or reacting. You can actually see where your quality pounds, dollars, euros are going. You can spot the leaks.
Identify where the biggest problems or costs are originating.
And then you can take targeted action. Maybe you see huge internal failure costs related to subtitle timing. Okay, maybe you need better training or tools for your subtitlers. Invest in prevention there.
So it makes it strategic, data-driven quality management.
Precisely. And as you mentioned, there are resources out there, like in the appendix of Dr. Fontana's article, that lists specific KPIs relevant for media localization.
Right. So wrapping this up then, the cost of quality framework, which Dr. Fontana really got insight into early in his career through that TQMS and finance lens,
Yeah.
gives us this really structured, financially grounded way to think about and manage quality in media localization. It helps us get past that risky good enough mindset.
It really does. It shows that by understanding these different cost categories and focusing strategically on prevention and appraisal, you're not just improving quality.
You're actually making smarter financial decisions, saving money in the long run, protecting your reputation.
Absolutely. It's about achieving true quality in a way that's sustainable and makes business sense.
So maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Considering all these different types of quality costs we've talked about, especially those potentially hidden failure costs, where's one specific area in your own work, your own projects or workflows, where taking a more proactive, preventative approach to quality, really applying these COQ principles, might actually lead to some surprising financial benefits down the road?
Yeah. What's one tweak you could make up front that might save a lot of pain later? Definitely something worth reflecting on.